All right, guys, welcome back to the Handcrafted Podcast. Today's going to be an office hours session. I've been collecting questions from you guys. Thanks so much for sharing them. Can't wait to dive in and answer them. I also wanted to say it's been really great getting to know some of you guys as you guys jump over to the community online. It's been awesome getting to learn about your business, talk to you, connect to you, learn what's uniquely different about what you guys are doing, as well as like watch you grow and just learn and connect with other makers out there. It's one of the coolest things about all of this. Absolutely love connecting with you guys. It really actually opens my mind to learn about what's working for you. Should I consider different ways of doing things as well? So super cool to be connected with you guys. All right, so again, this podcast is brought to you by the Handcrafted Network community I just talked about. We just wrapped an awesome group call. We talked a lot about SEO, website stuff, all that sort of stuff. So if you have any other questions or would like to join or not quite sure, send me an email, paul@thehandcraftednetwork.com. I'll gladly talk to you about it. And again, it's been great connecting with all those guys and girls who have joined. So thank you so much for that, and thanks so much for listening. Thanks for the questions. Let's get into the first one. All right, so this question is a little bit about how we do things at Philadelphia Table Company. So you've mentioned several times that typically one craftsman/team member will be the project lead throughout the entire order, which seems like a really cool way to do it. I was curious if you could share more on how that works, some pros, cons maybe, and I also have some specific questions below. 1, does your team like this model? Was there pushback switching over to doing it this way? 2, how is the payment structured? I imagine it's a little more complicated than just regular payroll, but the positives probably far outweigh that. Does this even include finishing? What happens when more than one person needs to be on one project for logistical reasons, such as milling really long boards for an extra long table? Do you have experienced builders that also play managerial roles or have managerial tasks? How does that coincide with the pay by project model? Okay, so I just want to clear one thing up. So I do talk a lot about single maker model, and that's the business model that we follow. But the individual makers are still paid hourly as if they're regular employees. So I'm going to dive into a little bit about what we do and how I've thought about doing it in the past. And if you wanted to switch over to a different pay structure, I'd actually be kind of curious to hear how it goes because we had considered it for a little bit. So within Philadelphia Table Company, when I was starting the company, I wanted to grow it in a way that I felt good, as well as like maintain the quality. And, I care a lot about my employees. This sort of answers your question here is the team loves this way of working, this way of managing projects. So what ends up happening is I end up closing the deal. It then goes to our operations manager, Jackie, and our designer, Sophie. They work together. Sophie does the designs. Once the designs are approved, we order the materials, and then it ends up in a maker's queue. So we work with our foreman. So to answer your last question there, one of our guys is, a few other people have different responsibilities and roles, one of which is our foreman. Our foreman oversees the productivity and production of all of these projects. So he also sort of helps assign who gets what project. For a while, he was like one of our like head makers. He was making a lot of the things, but we've actually dialed back his queue a little bit so that he can continue to help everybody else. So what happens is each individual maker, we use Trello as our system to organize how that goes and how the projects are managed. And what they do is each project gets put into their queue, into each individual maker's queue. We have 7 total makers. So what happens is they see the shop drawing there, they see all the details, and they're responsible for getting the project done top to bottom. I also make sure I include the hours that I quoted for the job. So maybe the job was like 60 hours, maybe the job was 70 hours, 80 hours, 40, 20, whatever. And what they're doing is they're using it as sort of like a decision-making tool to determine, hey, do I have enough time to do X step or XYZ step? For example, if I say something that was only 20 hours, they'll know and understand, hey, Paul wasn't expecting me to do dovetail joinery on every part of this. So that becomes part of the design conversation. But they are solely responsible for that project top to bottom. So Zip goes around every week, well, pretty much every day, checking in with people to see where they are with their individual projects. Now, some projects obviously are very big. Some projects require more people. So what we'll do is sometimes tag team stuff where somebody's doing a top, someone's doing a base, or like if it's a big cabinetry thing, maybe someone's helping with the doors or the drawers and slowly putting all the pieces together. Now, a situation that you had discussed here, which was paying people per project. So for a little while, I was considering that because I was trying to figure out how can I get more profitable? How can I get more efficient? So what I wanted to do was incentivize the makers that were working quickly and diligently to get projects done, as well as sort of making sure that I maintain the profit numbers that I need to hit. We all know in this industry, if you sell something for a certain price, I can't go back after the fact and be like, hey, this actually took us 60 hours instead of 40 hours. You owe us $1,000 more or something. So what I wanted to do was basically say, hey, I outlined this for 40 hours. You're going to get paid for the price, the 40 hours that I charged. If it takes you 20 hours, you still get the full amount. If it takes you 30 hours, you still get the full amount. If it takes you 60 hours, you still get the full amount. And my idea was basically it's like when the project comes in, they get half of the deposit up front to cover the cost. And then once the project is done and complete, they get the balance of that payment. And then we keep the profit number that's on top. And then I would do payroll for our operation. Anybody who's salaried essentially would then be coming off of that additional sort of like 40% for us. The reason why I didn't go fully into that and lean fully into that model and that approach was twofold. Number one, I didn't want to incentivize people to rush projects to get done and rush projects to get out the door. I just thought that it was sort of incentivizing the wrong sort of thing. The other reason why I didn't do it was because I was nervous that it was going to ruin the team aspect. It's one of our big core principles at Philadelphia Table Company is like team over self. So I didn't want people to not want to ask people for help or not want to help people. I mean, my original idea, I guess, was very, ideal situation where I was just like, hey, everyone's going to go at it with the assumption of they're going to need help sometimes, so I'm going to help here. And there is a chance that this could work, and there's a chance that we may do this at some point in the future, because I think some people could end up making a lot more money, and then others might end up being not so happy about it. The other problem with that too is it's really dependent upon me and how I'm quoting it. So they don't really have any say in how long the hours are going to take. So I could come up with a ridiculous number and say, hey, you're expected to do this in 20 hours, and it's a project that takes 40 or 60. That's not fair to them because they had no say in what the pricing was. So those were kind of my hang-ups in doing it. So what we do now is, like I said, we continue to pay everyone hourly. It's just every project has their own expected time rate. And finishing is included in that just because we don't have a spray finish. We do everything with a hand-rubbed tongue oil. We use Odie's oil pretty much exclusively just because of the environmental impact and all of that stuff. And I'll talk about that in another podcast as well because we just went through a whole finishing battle argument sort of thing internally to figure out what really is the best finish for our company. So I hope this helps. You can, I think, do the pay-by-project model. It is what I did when I started. When I had employees that were 1099, I would just say, hey, I'm going to give you $1,000 to work on this table or to work on this piece of furniture. So it might work as a small scale. I'm not sure how it would work at a large scale. I do know that there are auto repair places that work this way. So maybe it's a business model that's worth looking into from like an auto repair standpoint to see how they do it and how they continue to like get the projects across the line. I guess the difference there is you are working on set hourly stuff, right? If you're making stuff by hand and custom how long it's going to take to do breaks, right? But in our world, if you're making something, sometimes you don't know how long it's going to take to make it. So I'm kind of taking guesses with it. So that's why we stick to the model that we have now. Although at some point we may switch over, not entirely sure. But for now, we're going to stick with what we're doing to make sure that everyone stays happy, and it seems to be working well currently. Thanks so much for the question, Jonathan. All right, next question. I have found your podcast extremely timely as I have clients lined up enough that I went full-time in August and am now in the zone of trying to consider future business identity and what I want the business to make/be. My question is whether it's better to follow the work that you like and makes the most business sense, or do I use it as a stepping stone towards the work I prefer to make but don't yet have the clientele asking for, that or product recognition. I'm all for going towards what I love in terms of why I got into this, but I know that I'd be happy just making things that people appreciate and are more of a sure deal. To clarify, my niche right now is built-in work, which is satisfying, but I much prefer custom furniture, at least on paper. Is there room to Is there room to marry some of these things as a business? Hope you're well. Love the podcast. Thanks so much, Nick, for the great question. So I actually just had a conversation with somebody about this morning. I was meeting somebody and they were like, hey, how do you sort of navigate the path of like what you do and what you want to do? Do you just sort of go with the flow? So for me, I sort of went with the flow when I first started. So I was kind of taking on any sort of work that somebody would pay me to do, just as I could build up my portfolio and sort of discover what I was good at, what I liked doing. So we did everything from catios to dog houses, buffets, built-ins, furniture, all of that stuff. And this was before I even switched the name over to Philadelphia Table Company. So through that process, I was able to weed out the things that I liked and didn't like. And what happened was I actually I think it's you sort of follow a path that sort of takes you where you want to go, but as the road comes to a split, you could sort of make a decision, hey, I'm no longer going to do that work, I'm going to take this work instead. So you can make these sort of conscious decisions to do that, but you also need to intentionally put it out there. So if you are trying to do furniture, you're going to need to at some point show proof of concept. So whether that means you're building furniture for your house, you're building furniture for your friends, you do need to make sure you have those things on your website. But what slowly started happening to me was we started getting more furniture stuff, and we were still getting asked to do the built-in stuff and the other things that I didn't really love doing. And what I started doing was actually saying no to that stuff, which is really weird. At first, sometimes people even get mad about it, like, hey, I'm willing to pay you X. And in their mind, like, why is this person not taking my money to do this job? But I was very intentional with setting out and saying, hey, this is the direction I want to go. So I was saying no to some of the work, and that's usually often the hardest part, is turning down money that comes in the door. But I had a long-term vision for where I wanted to go and where I was heading. But again, you can't just say you want to do it. You need to start setting pieces in place to do that, which is building furniture, taking photos, and that sort of stuff. I also switched my name at the time when I decided I wanted to switch over to furniture. The name before was stupid. It was called South Philly Barn. I switched it over to Philadelphia Table Company because I wanted to start focusing on building dining tables. And inevitably, that name led to a bunch of dining tables and a bunch of other furniture pieces. So that's what slowly led me down that route. So now that I'm fully into the furniture world, we actually are starting to dip a little bit back over into built-ins and that sort of thing, which is actually a little bit hard to navigate back into, but that's what we're working towards now. So my advice to you is in the early days, you're going to take the projects that you can take, but you also want to intentionally start going in the direction that you want to go. And the way you do that is by starting to have proof of concept and proving that you're able to do these things so you can share it with others. Thanks so much for the question, Nick. All right, let's see, another question we have here. Hey, Paul, this is Sarah. I've been thinking about running meta ads, but I'm not sure if I'm really ready. What are the key things I should have in place before I even spend $1 so I don't waste money? Okay, so meta ads are super popular right now. We talk about them a lot in our group. I'm sure you've seen some ads around this podcast or the online group. So we are running meta ads. I also run meta ads at Philadelphia Table Company. But I didn't start running proper meta ads until I was at about 750K or more. I think the big thing with meta ads is you need to be willing to let $1,000, $1,500 just burn, like just go throw it out in the yard and let it on fire. I think I see a lot of people starting meta ads way too early. They don't really know their sales process. They don't really know what their client base is. They haven't really focused in on what they're good at and how they excel. So you could be bringing in a ton of leads through meta ads, but if you don't know how to close them, what's the point, right? Or you don't know how to make the things you're selling, or you don't like to make the things that you're selling. So for me, I think it's really about figuring out how you grow foundationally from the beginning, and it's a slow start. I think all of us, I'm constantly talking to other makers and other people in this space, and I think everybody gets so caught up in the I want it all, I want it now mentality, and we need to understand and remember this is a slow process. It takes a while to build a business. Yeah, of course you can kickstart it by running ads or meta ads, but at the same time, it's like if you're not well versed in what you're doing, you may just end up wasting money. You may not, and the other thing too is it's going to be wasting a lot of your time bringing those kind of leads in. Sometimes with meta, you get some lower quality leads. Within the community, we do talk about meta ads and how to get high quality leads. So that's one thing that we really focus on there. But I think in general, people are starting this process a little too early. You should be working with selling pieces to family, friends, or friends and friends of friends, local communities. Start there first and start growing. Start learning what your sales process is. Start learning at the things that you are good at. Start getting reviews, start sharing content, and start sort of spreading the word. And what happens is that becomes sort of the foundation of the business, because Meta could go away tomorrow, right? If Meta goes away tomorrow, then, and your whole business is based on that, that could be a really, really bad place to be in. So for me, I built a really strong foundation. I probably attribute 20 to 30% to Meta ads, and that's only because I started running them relatively heavily this recent year. But I know if Facebook goes away, if for some reason it disappears, I know I'm still okay, because for me, the ads were just sort of the icing on the cake. So I have a really strong foundation of word of mouth, of reviews, of designers I'll call like inside sales, of hospitality people that we work with. So Meta ads isn't the be all end all. I think everybody's looking for the easy button. It's 1,000% not the easy button. Do not bet on that being the easy button. I also hate to see people spending their hard earned cash at their day job to then put money into Meta ads to not work if you're not ready for it. Feel free to talk to me personally so we can work it out, and reach out to me personally. We could get on a chat about it, and I could say, hey, maybe you are actually ready for it. But I just wanted to, clarify that many people are a little bit too early for it. All right, on to the fourth question. It's all I'm going to be able to get to today. So, hey, Paul, one thing I've been struggling with is pricing. I hear people say charge what you're worth, but how do you actually figure out if your prices are too low or too high for your market? So it really depends on whether you're a starting business, a business starting out, or you're a more mature business. We actually had a conversation about this today on the group call, where somebody was talking about, I talk a lot about luxury strategies. So to me, I want to price as high as I can intentionally to signal luxury and to make sure that people are knowing the value of, or appreciating the value and understanding the value of what we're doing. If I'm selling stuff for cheap, people are going to assume that it's not great or it's not great quality or anything like that. With that said, when I first started, my goal was to just get as many pieces into people's houses as possible. And I also had very low overhead. I think I had like a garage that was $300 in rent. I would sell the table for like $2,500. $500 would be materials, and the other $2,000 would go in my pocket. So I think you can start there, and you can definitely start pricing low to get yourself up. But what needs to happen is you need to slowly, incrementally add more, add to your price. You need to start pricing higher and higher and higher as you move along, because what's going to happen is you're going to start getting expenses, you're going to need employees, and all of that sort of stuff starts to grow. For a while when I started, it was just like, as long as I have more money coming in than going out, I'm fine. But that's not really a reality of how you can grow a business. If you're not collecting money that you can then keep and stash, and as well as to help you grow, to help you bootstrap the business up, you're going to be in a really, really bad spot when you need that cash to grow. So I think you really need to look at what your profit margin is that you need to go to continue to grow the business beyond where it is today. And I think the hard part too, another hard part about all of this too, is, if you're pricing quote unquote too high and you're getting a ton of no's, you have to understand you're going to be getting no's. But if you're getting all no's, 100% no's, then maybe it is time to shift your pricing back down. Or the other possibility is you're fishing in the wrong pond. You're not going to be able to sell a high ticket item to somebody who is like lower income, or not lower income, but who isn't in that upper higher market. So I think that sort of is hard too. So I actually ended up switching markets probably about 5 years in, where I said, hey, I no longer want to cater to this market. I'm going to jump up to the higher market. So now whenever we run ads, whenever we do any marketing, all of that is fully focused on the luxury market, which is the top 5, 10% earners in the US, because that's really what it costs to make this stuff. It's not because I'm trying to make more money. I mean, of course, we're all trying to make more money. But at the end of the day, it's really, these are the dollars that I need to get in the door and to keep afloat. So what I did was I went through my cost analysis. I looked at my profit loss statement, and I was like, hey, this is the bottom line. This is the amount that I need to make to take home to be able to support my employees, to be able to support myself, to pay for rent and all that stuff. And I figured out what my profit margin is from there. For us, I think, a really good target is a 40% or 20% net profit. So it's 20% at the end of the year. And for me, in order to get that 20%, I know I needed to have a 40% gross profit. So 40% gross profit is how much you make each individual product. So when we finish a table, I want to be 40% profit there. So at the end of the day, when you go down the P&L, so you start removing rent, you start removing salaries, all that stuff, at the end of the day, what the company gets profitably is 20%. So I pay tax on 20%. That's called your net profit. That's the very, very bottom of your profit loss statement. The middle of the middle profit statement is your gross profit. That's per product. So I could talk all day about that sort of stuff. It's a little bit easier to talk about through visuals. So if you have any other questions on that too, we could dive deeper into that into another podcast. I hope that didn't confuse you more than it needed to. In general, I think it's a matter of going a little bit with your gut, and it's really a kind of a tough question if I don't really know where you are specifically in your growth journey, whether you have employees, whether you have a big shop or a small shop. All right, guys, thanks so much for the questions. If you have questions and want to be included on the next office hours, just send me an email, paul@thehandcraftednetwork.com. Again, that's paul@thehandcraftednetwork.com. If you're interested in joining the community, feel free to reach out to me, paul@thehandcraftednetwork.com. All right, guys, have a good one. Peace.